today actually is the 50th anniversary of when Marsha P. Johnson threw the first brick at Stonewall Inn. And this, of course, launched the modern day fight for LGBTQ rights. And I think we have a picture of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. I love this picture. I love this picture, and a lot more people are gonna learn who these two women are, because you may know already that Bill de Blasio announced plans for a monument honoring Johnson and Sylvia Rivera there. And just have a couple quotes I wanna read you. This coming out of New York: Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera were defining revolutionaries for transgender rights and racial justice here in New York City and across the country. And this is from Carmelyn P. Malalis. She works for the city government in New York City, also saying this memorial honoring their legacies could not have come at a more prescient time as the federal government rolls back protections for transgender people and violence towards transgender people grows nationwide. Our city is celebrating our trans communities and doubling down on our commitment to protect them. And now this permanent public monument honoring transgender women, it's gonna be the first of its kind in the world. It's 2019, but I guess one could say you have to start somewhere, but it is 2019. One more thing I wanna let you know. The Marsha P. Johnson Institute is opening their first office in the home of Marsha P. Johnson. I wanna show you something because there's a hashtag going around on Twitter. You should go search it because there's some really cool information there. A lot of people getting involved, but it's hashtag Reclaim Marsha. And back on the Institute here, they are fundraising to meet a $20,000 goal to open this office for the national movement to help elevate, support, and nourish the voices of Black trans people. I know we've had you on to talk multiple times about the violence against Black trans women currently, today, in 2019.
I can feel my petty percolating right now.
Really?
Because when we talk about that violence, we don't talk about the violence that comes from LGBT Inc. Because LGBT Inc. is pretty much these large organizations who like to screen trauma porn that pertains to Black trans women to rake in donor dollars, but we don't actually see any of the benefit from those dollars. And then when you have community leaders like Elle Hearns, who is the one who founded Marsha P. Johnson, the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, and people like me, we get silenced. Even when I worked in what I now refer to as the nonprofit industrial complex, I was only one paycheck away from being in the same demographic that I served. And so when there were things that were unethical that were happening to clients who were coming for services, I wasn't able to advocate for them the way that I wanted to. So basically, we like to use Black and brown bodies and faces and voices to puppet our meaning LGBT Inc., our thoughts and ideologies, but when it comes to actually prioritizing us, we are not a priority. So I am definitely all for people really standing behind empowerment.
Right.
I think there is a conflation of saviorism versus empowerment. Saviorism is reinforcing your own supremacy by giving us just enough breadcrumbs to survive, but not really putting us in a position of leadership so that we can make informed decisions that are going to help us thrive and empower us.
Is the monument a breadcrumb in the city of New York?
I think it's a beautiful gesture.
Okay.
It is a beginning, but it most certainly is a breadcrumb when we look at the fact that on a national, on an average, our life expectancy is only 35 years old. And then we see in the community that gay white men still are leading the conversation around what it is that the community needs. And so we're not talking about racism. We're not talking about sexism. We're not talking about transphobia, because we're allowing those individuals to use their sexuality as a shield. And so it is no surprise that Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera were the fierce warriors that they were, because your fiercest warriors are gonna be the ones who have nothing to lose but life itself. And so we got to see their experiences at the intersection of race, gender, and socioeconomic disparity. They were sex workers. And so they would go out turn some tricks, and then they would get a hotel room or an apartment, and the LGBT kids who were kicked out of their homes for being who they were in the late 60s and 70s, they would house them so that they didn't have to enter the prison industrial complex, so that they didn't have to risk their lives engaging in sex work, and so they didn't have to feel, they didn't have the love and warmth that any individual would need to go out and make the best lives for themselves.
You hear these stories about, because it's been said a lot, about these stories about how the LGBTQ community is sometimes the most economically free or the most affluent, because generally they have fewer kids and there's less worries. Like I remember when they said there's ads, like Ford started doing ads and they're accepting of the community more. And then so that becomes the veneer, what you may think is the case, but then you hear some stories about the economic hardships that many folks have. And then I think it's subconscious, since you hear about that so hard and like, oh, I feel so good that we're accepting folks that we previously hated because we're in our bubble, because many parts of the country don't, but we accept that. So then those instances of the economic hardships must only be a few.
Well, let me paint that picture for you. So in 2017, I've talked about this before, the buying power within the LGBTQ community was at $917 billion. And then in 2018, it went over $1 trillion. But for a trans woman of color on a national average, we make less than $10,000 a year. So how is it that we have that much wealth in a community that still continues to let trans women of color, more specifically Black trans women, scrape the gutters, scrape the bottom? It's because there is no intentionality about prioritizing our suffering, because once we were able to lift kind of like the barrier of being gay, a lot of gay white men now have the full access and full benefits of patriarchy that a cis hetero wealthy white man would have. And so I think for me, my biggest opportunities to build allyship and most of my support, quite honestly, has come from people like y'all. It's actually come from people outside of the LGBTQ community, because what people don't realize is that this, again, trauma porn, there's an industry for it. And so if we don't have these tragic stories about our murders, and we're not talking about the homelessness and all of these things that are going to continue raking in donor dollars so we can keep our doors open and our lights on, we're not going to be able to wield this power. And so I think that what I've been recommending to my LGBTQ siblings is get outside of that silo. Come over to the other side. The weather over here is lovely. There are people who are for us, who do support us, who don't exploit us. And quite frankly, there have been some LGBTQ media outlets who have helped amplify voices like mine and others. But to be honest, they fear me. I'm kryptonite, because I am there to pull the covers on all of it. It's just this there are so many mental gymnastics and mind games that are being played, and it's oppressive. And so what is depressing is here we are 50 years later, and we're still looking at the same dynamics. There's a video of Sylvia Rivera from 1973 when she's on stage talking about her experiences in prison. She said that she had had her nose broken. She was kicked out of her home for being trans. She was homeless on the streets and all of these things. And they had the audacity to boo her off of a stage that she helped build. And so I think it goes back to this idea that yes, we're accepting and we're embracing, but what's in it for you? Because I feel like with a lot of the corporations who participate in rainbow capitalism, you're only putting in money because you think you're going to get money back. But when it comes to the community that you feel can do nothing for you, let's see where your efforts go then.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.